Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is Game of Throws, Season 4, Episode 2. That's right, Game of Throws, not Game of Thrones. Or is it World of Warships Legends? I suppose you'll just have to stay tuned to find out, but take my word for it, this is, in fact, another game that can be called Game of Throws. However, in this one, there's a little bit of a plot twist. Now, am I going to spoil the plot twist for you? Like, those people on Reddit who make it their life's mission to find leaks about various entertainment IPs like Game of Thrones when it was on the air, or Star Wars, or whatever the case is. Do we really want to spoil it? Well, I don't want anybody to think of my videos as a salty Reddit post, but in any case, this is a game in which I am actually going to be responsible for a throw, or at least I think I am. And I wanted to show it to you because on all the other videos I've called Game of Throws, they usually have to do with my teammates throwing the game. But just because I get into a lot of games where my teammates throw and I get a little bit unhappy about it, doesn't mean I'm not perfectly capable of throwing myself. I am perfectly capable of that, and so is everybody else, because everybody else makes mistakes. So when we come to that point, we will point out our mistakes, and we will see if we can all learn from them. But until then, there is some stuff in here that I think is some pretty good examples of how to play this ship. When Chili Games sent me his six-pack game in the Des Moines, in which he killed 3 Minotaurs, and you can see here I'm kind of struggling to sink only one. This Minotaur is doing this sort of kiting thing behind this island over here. We're hitting him with the AP, hitting him with the HE. He's being a little bit dodgy, using that rudder to avoid a lot of our shells, and as a consequence, he's losing hit points a little bit more slowly than he otherwise might. And then we back up from this island, get spotted by him. He's going to start shooting at us. That's fine. His shells are super floaty, sort of just like ours, and that's part of the reason we're having a little bit of a difficult time hitting him here. It can be sort of difficult to hit targets at range with the Des Moines if you are not used to these floaty American shells, or even if you're just sort of bad at aiming them like I am. But we're going to dial it in here. We're going to get these AP shells into that Minotaur's broadside, and we're going to start scoring some citadels. There's 1. This salvo should make 2, and I think 2 is all it takes. There goes the Minotaur, first blood. Off to a great start, as they say. But that start isn't going to, carry us to the end. In any case, what was I saying? The game that Chili Games sent me, I'm sure you all saw it. It was a game in which he got 6 kills in the Des Moines, and as I was watching that video, and then watching it again in retrospect, because it was a great game, Chili's a great player. There's a lot of stuff that anybody could learn from him, me included. One of the things I noticed was Chili being quite patient, especially as the game started, finding a nice position to get himself in nice and, secure before actually dealing a lot of damage to the enemy ships. And patience is a thing that this game rewards. So you can see here that I have been actually quite patient in this game. I've pulled up straight to this island. I've been using it for as long as possible, raining down fire on that Minotaur who's now dead, and now this Montana who is pushing in, shooting some AP at his broadside, switching to the HE now, doing a lot of damage to him. Patience is a thing that is generally rewarded in this game, and it's especially rewarded in cruisers, which I think a lot of people find one of the more difficult classes to play in this game, due to the fact that cruisers, they usually have enough armor to stand up against the at least armor-piercing shells of other cruisers in games, but that armor tends to be inadequate when it comes to battleships, and you see a lot of cruisers out there just being far too aggressive, pushing straight into, say, a cap as soon as the game starts, shooting their guns at battleships when they aren't spotted, and broadside to the battleships only to be spotted and then be hit back in return for massive amounts of damage. you really do have to be quite deliberate about where you take your cruiser, where you position it, and most of the time, it's probably going to be beneficial to try to conserve your own hit points and maintain your own survivability rather than trying to be super aggressive, going out there only doing a little bit of damage before being sunk. And that is why we're taking our time here. We're evaluating the map. Our teammates have taken Charlie, thanks in part to our assistance with taking out the Minotaur and damaging the Montana. Now we're moving over to the other side of the map. We can see most of the enemy ships headed this way. All 3 battleships are, including this Champagne, who is obviously having a great time. I think when we first saw him, he was on full health. Now he's on, like, what, a third of his health, and he's got our armor-piercing shells coming his way. Those are going to remove a lot of his hit points. There you go. There's almost 5,000 hit points removed, and he's broadside, and yeah, things aren't going to work out for him, but this patience, I think, is paying off, and as that Champagne goes around the corner, we're going to try to push up a little bit more. We've got a Jean Bart out there, and the Jean Bart, of course, if he wants to sit there bow tanking everything, well, he can't bow tank my high explosive shells. If they hit him, they are going to penetrate and they are going to start fires. The goal is to melt him down here, but we've got a Bismarck, or we've got some battleship approaching the Bravo cap, which is currently being taken by one of our destroyer teammates, who is doing a fairly good job. But as you can see here, things aren't exactly working out in our favor. We've lost 4 ships to the enemy's 3, and we're ahead on points now, but that isn't necessarily going to last. Here comes the Bismarck around this corner now. That's going to make this position a little bit less tenable. We want to pull up closer to this island and make sure it is on the starboard side of our ship so that it prevents the Jean Bart from shooting at us. That way only the Bismarck can shoot at us, and the Bismarck has 15-inch guns. They cannot overmatch the Des Moines' 27 millimeters of armor plating, so we should be relatively safe, at least for a time. Of course, we are going to take fire from his secondaries and potentially this Conqueror out here right in front of us. The Conqueror has, what, like 17-inch guns, or at least glorified 16-inch guns, so he can do a lot of damage to us. We actually probably don't want to risk maintaining this position here. We want to pull forward even more and put this island between ourselves and the Conqueror, and from that position, the Jean Bart, actually I think the Jean Bart might have sunk, shouldn't be able to get us. Alaska pulling around the corner, things are getting a little bit dicey right now, but the Alaska cannot overmatch our armor plating either. So as long as we keep our bow pointed toward him for the moment, we should be okay. And that destroyer is able to pull out and actually finish him off with torpedoes. But here you can see we've lost quite a bit of hit points since the time that this engagement started. And that leads me to a little bit of a point about cruisers, specifically cruisers with good armor plating. Yes, the Des Moines has 27 millimeters of armor. Yes, 27 millimeters of armor can bounce 15-inch battleship caliber AP, but at the same time, this is a cruiser, and you don't want to necessarily push in there and rely on trying to bow tank something like a Bismarck. We did that, but we lost a lot of hit points in the process. Generally, I think that's a last resort, attempting to bow tank a cruiser in a battleship. I don't think it's the first resort that you should take. You can survive it, but is it worth it to lose so many hit points? I don't know. I suppose you can be the judge of that. In any case now, we've got it down to 3 versus 3. There's a Shimakaze behind us, and that Conqueror, who is almost at full health, is around the corner of this island. We are inside the Bravo cap. We've taken it, thus securing 2 caps to the enemy's 3, and we now have the cap advantage, which is great. So the question here is, what do we do? Well, up until this point, I think we've played the game pretty patiently. I think we've positioned pretty well, even though we did get a little bit aggressive there in pushing in toward the Bismarck and taking this cap. We did manage to take the cap, and I think that move was worth it because we did need the cap, and we are still relatively healthy despite the hit points we lost. So Yes, I'd say we've done a good job up until this point. But there's still 5 minutes left to go in the game. It's a 3v3, and really, it's anyone's game. The friendly ZF6, who is the final remaining destroyer we have alive, is on pretty low health there, and I do have that Shima caught on radar, so I was sort of hoping the ZF6 would be able to help whittle him down, but he may be a little bit hesitant because of the hit points disparity between himself and the Shimakaze, which is somewhat understandable, but here is where I start making what I think is a mistake. Now, initially I looked at that Conqueror. I didn't think he had his guns pointed at me. He did. Frankly, I wanted to see if I could potentially get a Citadel on the Conqueror at that range, just out of curiosity. Obviously, that didn't happen, and the Conqueror went down to the ram, but not before he shot a bunch of high explosive into my ship, lit a fire, and reduced me to, well, less than 5,000 hit points. So few hit points, in fact, that Summers feels comfortable shooting at me, and there we're finally able to put out that fire, and the Shimakaze comes in with some pretty nice torpedoes that hit us and sink us. Thus, I think we threw the game there. The ZF6 does not have enough hit points to take down both the Shimakaze and the Summers. He just doesn't. And if we hadn't gone in there aggressively against that Conqueror to shoot at his broadside when he had his guns pointed at us and can A, overmatch us with AP, or B, hit us really, really hard with HE, well, that is a bit of a problem. I felt so bad about this that I was considering messaging the ZF6 and saying sorry, because I thought this was, indeed, quite a bit of a throw on my part, and really it boils down to getting too aggressive. If I hadn't pushed out there, that battleship still would have rammed the Conqueror, he still would have went down, and we might have won then, because I would have been able to help that ZF6 take out the destroyers, but I didn't. Instead, I pushed in, and I died, so I threw. And let that be a lesson to you. You need to evaluate the map. You need to have a little bit more patience. Patience will reward you in this game. Recklessly pushing in often won't. And that is the lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.